apply apply it on the land, said it's not even worth them applying because it's just sand and silt. So there's no organic material in there. And that was our secondary primary cell.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just thinking that you just give that another 10 years, if we're even allowed to use diesel trucks and hose, what in the world would the cost be then? So the investment I use every year, and so throughout all the year while the lagoon is open, we broadcast it on the primary cell, the two primary cells, and then it flows through there. So, and I can keep a pretty good eye on it just because of our location. We get
Mm-hmm.
extreme evaporation, so we can tell whether or not there's any sludging, and I haven't seen no sign of anything ever. So I know it's doing its job.
Fantastic. Wow, I really appreciate that.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for all the details. And so here's some questions coming in. Okay, so unrelated to yours, I'll get to the other
Yeah.
questions. Thank you for the questions. Any other questions specifically for Stephen and his experience? Feel free to throw it in the Q&A or in the chat as well.
Brian also exposed me to the idea, and I did do a little bit of sales on the side of doing it into, and I'm not sure if this is good to bring it up now, into just private um, septic systems, because the little village next to us, Karen, each home is on a
Mm-hmm.
septic system,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought to move it into there so that they wouldn't have to pump out their holding tanks as often as they do. And so I thought that was really good to see that the product actually can be used in a small scale as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Initially, it was designed and created for full-scale systems, but as things progressed, people kept on asking questions. Well, what about my septic tank? What about this? What about this different location? And so we created a product specifically for septic tanks to help with that. We have seen in many cases it reduced the sludge, the odor, and prolong the need for cleaning out the tanks. We have a handful of sewer and septic trucks around Alberta and Saskatchewan. The companies actually buy and distribute the product to their customers because it makes their job easier, way easier. Or oftentimes you have to get in there and agitate for a couple, an hour or so just to be able to pump things out because it gets so compact and sludged. And so they'll often have them use the product, come back the week later and be able to pump the whole thing out without agitation. So we have seen some really great results with septic too. So if any of you out there have a septic system and haven't used it there, this is definitely beneficial to help you with that as well.
The interesting thing you also mentioned was the fact of odor. We're just outside of the guidelines set out by the government, and rarely do we ever smell anything from our lagoon. And so very rarely. And so that's an encouraging thing as an operator, that you don't have your village all complaining to you just because of odor.
Yes. Yes. Very good point. There is a lot of issues with odor in some towns, and so this does help break down and improve the odor. So great. Thanks, Stephen, for your time. I appreciate it.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for speaking. I don't see any. Oh, one question was, how do you broadcast the product? I don't know if that was to you, Stephen. Do you broadcast it in the lagoon as well?
Yeah, they come in those pouches that come in the pails, and I just simply drive around. It's a combination of driving around and just throwing the bags in the water because the bags are water soluble. And with that, it gives me an opportunity to look at and inspect my lagoons every week, which is crucial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's as simple as taking the bag and just throwing it in.
Yep.
And then as Clayton mentioned, he just throws it directly in his lift station. So they're all pre-packaged, no direct contact with product. It's all pre-measured. And that's why we do it in water-soluble bags, is there's no contact and pre-measured. Then they just throw it in wherever there's needed so they can get direct contact as best as possible on the organics.
Yeah,
So,
and as I said, in the wintertime, I put them in the wet wells of the lift stations just so that they get into the warm water right away before they're pumped out into the cooler water,
right now,
and they're
exactly.
growing.
Great, thank you. All right, appreciate that. We will move it on now to Doug from Invermere.
Hi
So,
there. Doug Hagan. I worked for the district here for 18 years now. I was directly involved with the wastewater collection and treatment system for about 10 years and sort of been more involved with just a broad spectrum of the utilities for the past couple of years.
great. So I'm going to share. Doug specifically had a PowerPoint that he made, so I'm just going to pull that up here. All right, go ahead, Doug.
All right, if you can just go to the next slide, Jonathan. So we started using the ActiZyme product in about 2016. We use the LS7 project in all our lift stations, and we use the regular ActiZyme for general maintenance at our lagoons right now. We have 10 lift stations around our town, as well as a bunch of gravity. And yeah, and we basically have a chamber that goes right before our lagoons, and that's where we basically put our product in there. And so it works throughout the collection system, through the gravity lines, through the lift stations, and as well as just before the lagoon. So it's all getting treated before that.
Doug, could you explain what I know you didn't take a picture and you told me you wish you had about that chamber before the lagoon. Can you describe what it was like before using ActiZyme?
Actually, it's probably the next slide,
Oh, the next
or
slide?
well, it comes up in a bit. So
Okay, go ahead.
one of our big issues was in some of our lift stations, we have that grading down below. And to apply the product, it was like we can't just throw the bags down there without trying to lift those hatches down below, which was painful. And so we tried it and originally sort of to mix it with water at the beginning. It didn't work out so well. So what we did was, as you can see there, we added about 1.5 inch PVC pipe that went straight down, and we just reduced it at the bottom to go through the grading. And it's just held on with some zip ties, and now we just basically open up the bag, pour it down the tube, and so it has a direct application on the surface of the wet well and the effluent that is in there. Very little maintenance with the tubes because they are humid in the wet wells. You do have to about once or twice a year just clean them out. Just it does build up against the walls, but very easy to clean out and just start reusing again. And so yeah, we found that very easy. Just and some of the lift stations we just are able to just toss them right down. So with the bags, like we were saying, they dissolve in the water fairly quickly.
Next slide.
Yeah, next one. So this is the chamber right before our lagoons. As you can see, there's a little bit of buildup in there, but when I first started in 2011, there was probably 2 to 3 inches of solid grease on a regular basis that was in there. We actually had to stir it up before we put our product in there, just so it would actually get into the effluent. And I would say within a couple of months of actually using ActiZyme, the LS7 product in our lift stations, again, it worked through the entire system. It basically was very more like a lot more manageable. Like I say, we've never had a buildup in there. We stir this up once a week just to keep everything sort of loose on top. But I've never seen the buildup in there again. So again, it really helps with the maintenance of these chambers, and again with the grease built up in our lift stations as well. And just a little note there that this chamber, all our effluent from the town goes through there, and that's anywhere from 1,000 cubic meters a day to, in the summertime, 14, sometimes 1,500 cubic meters per day. So we've noticed a big decrease in the grease buildup with when we were using the LS7 product.
Actually, if I can interrupt, that's a good point. I love that you're explaining this, because the flow through this little this little unit, or this chamber, is quite fast, right? The influence,
Yeah.
like 1,400 cubic, is very, very fast.
Yeah.
But yet there's still grease built up on it, and it still does work, even though the turnover is extremely fast, but it has to have direct contact.
Yeah.
That's what I hear, the lesson here on this one is that if you didn't use anything, there was a few inches of it there, where if you put it throughout your system, it's no longer there, and then you can put it directly on top, and it breaks it down. So the
Yeah.
direct contact seems to be important here.
Yeah. So next slide. So we did a bioaugmentation project the last couple of years. Again, we've desludged our two primary lagoons. One was done in 2006, and the main lagoon was done in 2013. So we did a survey in 2022 just to sort of see where our sludge levels were. I was talking with Jonathan about we sort of had a lot of capital projects on the go, and we didn't really want to get involved with another major desludging project. So Jonathan recommended the AZ Plus to reduce the sludge especially in the second lagoon, because it was about 15 years into its life, and or after the desludging. So we wanted to see if we could prolong the attempt to just getting rid of the sludge again. So we decided to use the AZ Plus in 2022. So we did our first round. And the next slide just shows we had Hydro Survey come out and do the survey. So we had one done in 2022, and then one done in 2023, and this basically just shows the difference in the reduction. And this was done online, so we also took whatever we did in 2022 as well. The next slide just basically shows what the reductions were. So in our number 2 cell, it removed 459 cubic meters of wet, 61 cubic meters dry, and about 41 bone dry tons of sludged. And we do have the next slide shows the 3D of just the reductions. And again, we were targeting more number 2. Our application was, we put it in the end of our first cell that was being transferred over into cell 2, just to hit those sort of bigger areas. And again, and throughout number 2, and again, broadcasting it just by tossing it into the lagoons. And this was the sort of where we targeted. I believe it was, we did the application 3 times a week, and about 3 bags per location. And yeah, I think it was the project encompassed about $35,000 worth of product per year. We did it again this year. We will be doing another hydro survey in May again, to see how much it went down. But we sort of wanted to see first what the actual amounts were before we did the second round. So yeah, we were quite happy with how much it reduced the sludge in especially the second cell.
Yeah. Just a point here, like looking at the reduction in 1 year, you mentioned just lightly that it also takes into consideration that it removed everything that was new, all the new raw sewage. And thing is,
Yeah,
Invermere, your system is kind of designed for your normal population, but your population fluctuates so much.
yeah, we're about 3 hours away due west of Calgary. We're basically considered Little Calgary. Our regular, I'd say our regular residence is about 25 to 2,800. In the summer months, from basically the May long weekend till now September long weekend, and it's even getting busier into October, we're probably 5 to 6,000 people in our town, just with cabins and residents, just tourists as well. We're a tourist community.
Yeah, the question here for you is, what was the survey called that you used?
We use Hydra Survey out of, I believe they're out of Edmonton.
Yeah, I know. I think Clayton said that he did use Hydro Survey as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're a third party. I've always recommended them because it's a third party company. All they do is surveys. They don't do anything else, and so they're seem to be a great operation there. So
very, very good to work with.
yeah. Yeah, great. So any additional questions for Doug and his experience here? Looks like there was a hand raised. Jay, did you have a question? You have to type it into the Q&A or the chat. Oh, here's some more chat here. Hold on a second.
The cost for the survey, I'd have to double check. I can't remember exactly offhand what it was. It was, yeah, I'd have to look at what we paid for it. It was reasonable. And again, being from Edmonton, Invermere, we're sort of in the middle of nowhere, so we pay a little bit for travel and things like that.
mhm. Great. Someone was saying you can use an air cannon on the shore to launch. That would be entertaining to use a cannon to shoot these bags. These bags are water soluble. They don't really, like, if your hand is wet, they'll break open. So an air cannon would totally destroy these bags. I don't think it would broadcast anywhere close to anywhere in the lagoon. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. That's great. Now we'll move on here. Let me just share my screen again. So Luke. Luke.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Sure can.
Perfect. Oh, I should shut my ringer off. Sorry.
No problem. So Luke, yeah, please introduce yourself, your background, elaborate on your role in your municipality.
You bet. My name's Luke Lockhart. I'm with the town of Outlook. I've been here for about 22 years now. The last 8 as superintendent of public works. We have about 2,400 population here, 2-stage lagoon system, 1 main lift, 2 smaller lifts. ActiZyme has been used in our town forever since I've been here and longer. So we're kind of on the mindset that it's been working well. So why change what's working good? It's not overpriced. It's reasonably, with all the other offers that have come in from all the other great salesmen in the world. So like I said, it's worked. Can get into a few more specifics here.
Yeah, please do.
We do apply at our main lift station. We do 5 pounds per week in the wintertime and 10 pounds per week in the summertime. Previous to the turnaround, we try and get out and put about 100 pounds directly into our first cell at our lagoon.
Mhm.
Again, that's just been common practice for us forever. We've never had issues with smell coming off of it. No mounding issues ever. Our lagoon was put into service in 2021. 2001. And then we did have a company come out and do a survey on it, claiming that we had 5 to 7 feet of sludge throughout the whole thing. So of course we went with their word. We built an $80,000 drying bed, paid about 120 grand to get it desludged. And we were quite disappointed with that because there was maybe an inch or two in the bottom of our drying bed, which was about a 16th the size of our lagoons. So I would accredit that to the enzyme doing its job and, you know, knocking down that sludge. Um, we've never seen visible mounding anywhere. Our lift stations are clean, you know, as far as lift stations go. I don't know what else.
And your water quality is
Yeah,
maintained and
we've always had good results. Our samples have always come back good, no issues with anything.
so to review then, so you've been using it for 20 plus years, and even though you had to dredge or were kind of put into that situation, it wasn't really required then to do that.
I would say it was a waste of our money to do that dredging. We should have had like you said, a third-party survey done prior to. It was the dredger themselves that did the survey for us. And
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I'm not here to badmouth anybody either, but
No,
just
yeah.
to let you know that we have had no sludge in that lagoon since it's been built. And well, I mean, of course, not none, but very minimal. No issues whatsoever. And like you say, you got to attribute that to the product that we're using.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's actually kind of crazy that for 20 years, never having to really have the need to dredge.
Yeah,
Because like I've seen so many places that have had issues with sludge because they're not using anything and they're just letting the lagoon system run its course. And I know actually for Outlook, specifically, I believe they've been buying, the town's been buying for over 50 years. So,
like I said, it was
yeah.
forever, and that was the only option when I moved in. The old boys said, "You keep using this stuff, and you'll be happy." So
There you go. Well,
do
and it
that.
seems like it's done its course and it's processed for you. No, that's great. Yeah, preventative maintenance, you know, is worth its weight in gold, right? Like just being able to take care of and manage things properly. And I know all of you operators out there know this and it's not just wastewater, anything that's done preventative maintenance, right? Doing a proper oil change in all your machinery and maintaining it is way better than waiting for it to kind of really break down and have to fix a severe problem.
For
And
sure.
wastewater is really the same scenario where you're preventative. This is the oil to the system to increase the production of biological activity so that it breaks down those organics so you don't have to deal with the uh, the sludge, right? Which is the sludge is just is the buildup is the root problem, but then the side effect is that it starts spilling over and then your water quality is out of whack because you have suspended solids and BOD that are high because your sludge is building up. So
Mhm.
those are just indicators. So yeah, great. Thank you so much, Luke. Is there any other questions here? I'll just check questions or chat for Luke and his experience. I can't see if someone is typing something. I'll just wait for a second because looks like it's good. Well, I
Right
appreciate it,
on.
Luke. Thank you so much for your
Yeah,
experience and sharing. Goes a long way to understand how it's working in your guys' location. So thank you.
for sure. Thank you.
All right, next we got Chris. All right, Chris. Would you be able to unmute yourself there? Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah. So Chris, yeah, please go ahead and as normal, like introduce yourself, your background, and elaborate a little bit more on your role in the municipality.
My name is Chris Boyd. I'm the Director of Public Works for the town of Cutknife. I've been in the industry for over 23 years. Been with the town up to 2012. I did go with another municipality for 5 years. Then I came back to the town of Cutknife. I've been the foreman here since 2005. That's pretty much my background. We currently operate Two Cell Lagoon, one lift station. It we add the product to the lift station, summertime. And the lagoon, wintertime, we take it down to, we continue year round to add the product, but just wintertime would be in the lift station. We've seen a very good result from it. ActiZyme has been used long before I started here. Our current lagoon was built in 1981. That project, we did have a lagoon prior to that. I don't have the information on that one, but I know this one was put into service in 81, 82.
Mm-hmm.
There was a dredging done on it in 2015. I was not here at that time, but reading the reports and talking, there was minimal buildup in that system. Council felt at that time it needed to be dredged, so they completed it. Whether it was a necessity or not, like I say, it was minimal amount of buildup in that lagoon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, well, and sometimes it's not that manual removal, it will never be necessary, because there are plastics, there are things, there's non-organics, and like the case of Stephen, there's wind erosion and sand. Like there are things that do that are non-organic in there that do build up. So it's important to know that manual removal does come up as a concern with those things. And so yeah, good point. Like maybe it wasn't really needed, and now at least then you got rid of whatever was there, and whatever non-organics or plastics were there, and now you can know that from then on it's we'll have a longer life for that. So
we haven't done anything with it since that time, right? And I mean to say, I watch, that the lagoon, both cells, primary and secondary cell, it's clear, you can see the bottom all the time, like, it's crystal clear water that's in there. So it's not a problem to manage that system. So I believe it works. I'll say, there are other products out there. Do they do the same thing? I don't know. We've stuck with ActiZyme, and I don't see that there's been an issue. I know many years ago, first when I started, a competitor showed up, and being new, the guy said, well, we don't have that product anymore, we got this product. And then when the foreman came back at that time, he said, well, where did this come from? I said, well, this guy showed up, and they switched back. They sent that product back, and they use ActiZyme. So it does work.
Thank you. Thanks. Now you're do you have any experience in the system itself, similar to the others, with maintenance, and has it changed the maintenance and the of your?
Absolutely. Our lift station is minimal grease buildup in it. I've put some in the system itself through the manholes and stuff like that. The maintenance, yes, we've had spots where there is, where there's restaurants and stuff, some grease buildup and things like that. We've got a private line that we don't do too much maintenance on. I'm sure it's the property owners to take care of that. So I'm sure that one is probably not as clean as our system that we look after. But minimal, like lift stations, when we clean that lift station, there's minimal amount of anything built up in that lift station to give us an issue, right? I've seen lots. I do some regional operations too, and you see, where they don't use it, you'll get, a buildup in lift station, stuff like that. And you can only recommend products, whether they use it or want to use it, spend the money on it. That's totally up to them. So
No, that's great. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, Chris. Great experience there with using ActiZyme throughout your system. And it was similar questions to the others. Was there any issues with your? I guess if it's crystal clear in your second cell, you probably have no issues with your effluent quality or anything like that.
No, we don't. There's a couple things that are a little higher, but no, mostly like when we submit our samples, it comes back. We don't have any compliance issues or anything like that.
Yeah, great. There is a question here that might be best. Well, first of all, thanks, Chris, for sharing. I appreciate that. Thanks for participating, coming on today.
You're quite
Uh,
welcome.
There is one question in the chat that maybe I'll just leave it open to any of the panelists. Now that all of you have spoken, have any of you had any experience or in the reduction of H2S in your system or corrosion on metal parts? Have you had any experience at all with those? If you have, you can feel free to unmute yourself and share. No. So yeah, good question about H2S from Mike. I have seen H2S reductions in different systems. So we've done projects for anaerobic digestion in the US with a few different systems in California, and saw a significant change in H2S. So we have seen that. A lot of the guys today I've used, as you could hear, we're all preventative maintenance, so they probably wouldn't have an H2S reading before and after because it's not in a severe situation and see the reduction of where it got to after treatment. Yeah, we have seen improvements in different places. None that are recorded in these typical type of lagoon systems. Most of them are gravity fed and move quite quickly, that there's not really significant H2S buildup in at least these ones here. But we're interested in learning more. So if, Mike, you have a situation where you do have H2S as an issue, we're more than willing to talk and figure out a solution to help deal with the H2S or address it, or find a way that we can help, and maybe even have a future seminar or webinar right on H2S. So, okay.
Just to add in there with the H2S, of
Mhm.
course, we don't have a baseline like you mentioned. We've always used the ActiZyme. We do clean our own lift stations. We go down there ourselves. We wear gas monitors, and it's very, very rare that we get any alarms for H2S or anything else. So whether that helps with that question or not, I don't know. But very rarely is there any H2S present in the lift stations when we're cleaning.
Thank you, Luke. Appreciate that. Great. So there were a couple of questions that are more generic questions I'll get to. So one here from Bill is, are there any white papers or peer-reviewed papers showing ActiZyme effective efficiency that we could share? So we do have one that was written. I was actually in conjunction with anaerobic digestion and through a master's program that I went through, that is published, showing the impacts on anaerobic digestion. So these are huge, massive digesters in California. We have a couple other papers that have been submitted that are peer reviewed through the University of Calgary on the impacts on lagoons. So we can share those with you for sure. Some of the anaerobic desludging cases have not gone all the way to white papers and peer reviews. The Ontario Clean Water Agency has submitted and presented at multiple shows in Ontario, and they have an actual document that in a full report, which we could move towards white paper and peer reviewed as well. It's been on my mind, and I think we chatted with them about it as well. It's just never gotten to that point, but it's something that we can consider with them to work on. Another question here, a couple other questions. Public Works in Granham's asking about what we've done in the world and other various projects. I will get to some of those projects that we've done elsewhere in a minute. And then another question, are we thinking about presenting this at SUMA and other conventions? We have in the past done similar. And we will actually next year, we're looking to try and present this information, more specifically the Bruce Mines project that has a lot of data and information and third-party results, water quality and sludge tests all done. We will be trying to get that into all the different trade shows and associations to be part of their technical presentations. So we will do that. I really do love this forum of having operators come in and actually share their feedback and share their experiences. We did this in Alberta at the AWWA a couple of years ago, and it was a great success. It was 3 hours long because that's the requirement for credits. So that's a potential option as well that we're looking at for presenting in the next coming year. Another question. This is Kevin. Not sure where he's from, but for you panelists here, have any of you, or do any of you have aerated lagoons? And do you use it in an aerated lagoon? I know Doug, you could talk to that.
Yeah, we have 2 cells are aerated. That's the one thing that we're looking at right now is just upgrading our air system. We've sort of realized we're a little bit lacking in aeration just with how much effluent is coming in. But yeah, we use it in our aerated lagoons.
Great, thank you. So Kevin, the project that Doug explained, and that's actually where the sludge built up was between the aeration, right? So there's movement of water where the aeration lines were, but the sludge built up and stayed where there was no aeration. And that's where you could see the sludge build up based on the sludge survey. So aeration does have its place in being able to increase the production of aerobic bacteria for nitrification, but anaerobic bacteria function without the presence of oxygen, so it works best in anaerobic conditions. Next question here. Do you have any clients? Do we have any northern clients? Yes, there are. There are quite a few. The most northern is Innovate and Yellowknife. We've had some clients way up north, a handful of them, and they're really small. One's called, I'm just zooming in, trying to remember the name. So there's Innovate, and there's quite a few different forts on remote areas, way up north. So it still does function in northern clients as well. So that does have clients there too. We have also clients in very southern warm areas, which I'll get to in a minute, where we're helping developing countries as well. One more question here. Oh, just to do a review. Sure, we could take a look at that and review the differences between different technologies. Thank you. Okay, so a brief explanation of how do the enzymes actually function and work. So our product is actually created, all the bacteria are created from waste. So we actually take waste from wastewater treatment systems, and we kind of strip out and find the strains that are there that are naturally occurring healthy strains, not pathogenic, but healthy strains of bacteria that are within the waste. We then take that, concentrate them, and then put them into the product, which then goes in to reduce the waste. So it's a full cycle of how the bacteria function or retrieve from. So how the product works in a very simplistic form is that all bacteria and enzymes are everywhere, right? So they're in all lagoons, and all lagoons will eventually break down the organics that are there, but they just take a long time, right? Because it's the nature's process. And what we're doing is taking the same powerful bacterial and enzymes that are located in a lagoon, plus we add ones that are not typically found in a lagoon that will perhaps work better in more land areas and drier areas. And we add it into the lagoon, And what it does is it augments the number and the quality and the quantity of all of the bacteria and enzymes, and they function together. So the bacteria consume, and the enzymes work as a harmonious relationship, working together. So this product, ActiZyme, is not just a bacteria. It's actually a consortium of 70 different type of bacteria that work and function together as it breaks down the sludge with the enzymes. We also have a proprietary component, which we call the microbial enhancement technology. That component, what it does is it helps balance and function the water to create an atmosphere for the bacteria to function and flourish. So it helps balance and buffer pH and provide the situation for the bacteria to work. And so all we're doing is augmenting the biological activity and whatever is there naturally occurring. Let's say you're going out to war or a battle and you have 1,000 troops versus 10,000 troops. You might be successful for a while, but it's an uphill battle trying to take on a really significantly higher issue, right? Where if we come in with 1,000,000 troops versus 10,000, we can conquer all those pathogenic bacteria. We can take over the system, and what it does is it improves and it increases the production of biological activity, and it was able to break down and get rid of all the sludge. And so how it functions from there is that the sludge, as some people have asked, doesn't disappear. Like, where does it go? Sludge is converted as it's broken down into water, nutrients, and gases, right? So it takes the actual hard sludge and breaks it down into like acetates and liquids, which then are broken down further into nitrogen and gases, and then water. So, and then your elements are left. So the elements are like phosphorus, heavy metals, or whatever else might be in there. That's what's there, what stays and settles at the bottom of the lagoon. And then the organic components like carbon and nitrogen, oxygen, those are then released in gases. And that's how you're able to take solids from a solid state into a liquid and into a gas state where it breaks it down and releases it. So it's the same process again that naturally happens. What we're doing is we're just speeding up that process so that it's able to happen within our timeframes, because all of us want to accomplish our timeframes much faster. One more question here is, are the enzymes alive? So when we ship, we ship everything in a dry, inert state, meaning that they're not currently active and alive until you are adding water added to the system. So once you add the bacterial enzymes to the water, they become hydrated, and then they start to function. So when we ship them, it's all in dry packaged water-soluble bags, at which point, when they're activated, then they become alive, but they're currently not alive. Okay, just wanted to highlight a few other things and finish up. So we have set up, and I mentioned this to a few of you, a new foundation called the Water Tree Foundation. One of the things that we have a passion about is trying to reclaim water, right, with everybody here and all of the clients across Canada. But we also want to reclaim water in developing countries. So we are putting in our efforts to try and help countries that have significant issues of sludge buildup and odor and water pollution. So I have a couple slides here just to show you a little bit of the work that we've done in Honduras. So this is in a lagoon in Honduras where the sludge is produced from an industrial coffee process. So they take coffee, they strip off the pulp, and they compost the pulp. Then they have these green coffee beans and they wash the beans, and there's a mucilage and a bit of organics that come off of it that go into this. And so this is what it looks like when there's no treatment at all, no use of anything. And it just builds up. The sludge builds up. The water quality, as you can see, it's brown. It's a horrible condition. The discharge, they often discharge this right into rivers, or it seeps through, and a lot of them aren't lined, so it seeps through the land into the water table. So the pollution is quite high. The sludge, after a time, they move the water, they have to go in by hand. They don't use machines. So it's a human health issue too. I've actually physically seen it. Guys go in boots and scoop out the sludge. So in essence, there is no treatment whatsoever in these type of systems. So we wanted to solve the problem because these are real issues impacting them. The odor, the sludge buildup, the water pollution, the water quality in the water table, as well as the human health issues. And so this is what it looked like in 4 months. So in 4 months, it completely desludged the whole lagoon. There was no odor. It was clear water that they were then able to use to irrigate or discharge. It was a huge impact on these systems, and so the application itself is very powerful. So now we've extended the use to more and more systems. So here's a review of the water. The bottom one is the picture that I just showed. The top one is a totally different system. It's in a different part of Honduras, still coffee. And so we're able to provide, we've donated this product to them, and so that they can provide the solution. The issues with these places is that they're very, very remote. They're up in the mountains. They don't have access to a lot of electricity. Electricity is actually quite expensive. And there's not a lot of operators with high quality certifications or education. So because they lack the expertise, the money, the infrastructure, and access to electricity and such, there are really not many solutions out there to solve their problems. And so we've stepped in to help them. We've done projects there for 3 years. And just this last couple of months ago, I was there, and we're now moving into not away from these little smaller industry into municipalities. And we're going to be helping some municipalities this year to help clean up their waste and whatnot. And I'll show you this here. This is the next slide. I don't know if the video will work. But before I press the video, if you see right here, there's a white, I don't know if you can all see this, but there's like a white tile. Well, like it's a, basically it's a pipe, but it's a corrugated pipe. This is from a town called Villanueva. And this is 100% of their sewage going into a dugout right by the city, which then flows into the river.
The water is being directly poured, the sewage water, right into the river. That's an obvious smell as well.
So this town built a highway, and there was an accident, and they broke the pipe. That was 10 years ago. For 10 years, they have not been able to fix a pipe. And so this pipe was going to a lagoon system, and that lagoon system wasn't really functioning very well, as you saw some of the other pictures. But now, for 10 years, 100% of their flow, and this is a population of 80,000 people, go straight into the river and the water. So there are a lot of issues out there, and I know you've all experienced water breaks and severe issues. I tell you, the issues these guys have to face and these operators. Imagine having a job where your water quality and your public works, and this is the problem, and you can't get money to fix a pipe. Like, it's insane, the issues that they have to deal with. So we're going down to try and help them help. We're going to try and help them find some pipe to connect their system, and then and donate some product to help maintain and clean up their lagoons. So that's some of the work that we're trying to do to give back and to help developing countries to solve some of the problems that they're dealing with. Because this is a universal issue everywhere. Wastewater is everywhere around the world. About 80% of wastewater around the world is discharged just like this, and not very rarely or very minimally treated, if not at all. So. Okay, so with that, that's the end of the presentation. Is there any, before I jump into the reason why you're all really here, this Hawaiian trip, is there any other questions? I have, does this product work against crypto support? I do not know what that is, so I don't know if it does. Does anybody know? I don't know what the,
Are they saying cryptosporidium?
yes. What is that?
It's a live bug.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know if it contributes to Giardia or what it contributes to. I can't remember.
Cryptosporidium. So it's a pathogenic type bacteria?
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's pathogenic, this does help against. So what our bacteria does is it consumes all of the organics in a system so that there are the pathogenic bacteria do not have a food source. So that then like E. coli, fecal coliform, all those type of pathogenics um, are done away with. You do not have to deal with them because they. So it's not that it specifically goes out and eats or destroys the pathogenic bacteria. It outperforms and outlives them by consuming all of that waste, so that then they have nothing to live off of, and then it should be able to deal with. So this is bacteria from duck feces, it looks like. And so if that's a contributor, and if you have a significant amount in a lagoon system, please reach out to one of your local reps and we can talk about it as an issue, and we can measure and track it. You may need to maybe perhaps use a bit more product if you are using to overcome and get rid of the organic levels that are within the lagoon, so that there's nothing that they have to live off of. So yeah. Another question here. So the question is from Jen is there a broad question? What time frame do you give people for expected results? And is there an expectation for the amount of inches or mass to be reduced in a season? So whenever we do a desludge, meaning like a system that we're trying to desludge, we typically always say it takes about 2 years. We live in very cold climate, and it takes a lot longer than the 4 months like I showed you in the picture in Honduras. So we typically say 2 years. As far as sludge reduction, that's based on the system itself, the type of organics that you have, how much sludge, and how much product. So there's a lot of functions there, what the end result might be. And we do typically have that set up individually per location of what the expectations would be. But we do provide some expectations on what the results could be. There are situations where the results have not really been achieved. And there's one in particular in not Black Diamond anymore, Diamond Valley. There was a reduction in sludge, and it wasn't exactly what we achieved in the first year that we wanted to see. So it's still 2 years, so it's not fully finished. But what we found out is that they were receiving well over 10,000 cubic meters of commercial waste that they had no idea where it came from, and it was pumping directly into their primary lagoon, which could have killed the whole process. So they were having illegal dumping in a system that was connected directly to their primary cell, and which could have completely killed off everything. If it was just solid, just organics, that was one thing that we were not able to understand on reduction of solids. We didn't, put in their calculations, or it could have been commercial toxic waste. We have no idea what was put in there. So why I mentioned that is that expectations are set up based on what we know of a system, and if there's illegal dumping or caustic, harsh chemicals, that can all make an impact on the reduction. But we do set up expectations individually per system. Any experience using ActiZyme to reduce high COD in a leachate pond? I believe that's a leachate, you mean like a pond from a landfill? And yes, we have done landfills and leachate as well. We've done, so the waste in these coffee ones that I showed earlier, their COD is extremely high. Like your guys' BOD, COD, for municipalities typically are pretty considered non-high strength. High strength is like in the 5 to 10,000 range. And we have seen complete turnaround in systems with even high COD as well. So that is something we can look into. If you reach out to us, we can help you learn about that. So last question before we go in is there any potential side effects of using the products? Great question. So because ActiZyme is a natural, it's all natural, we're adding it into waste streams that are already polluted with very significant pollution, either biological or chemical wastes, right? So these wastes are considered waste itself. And so why we're us adding products into waste is not wouldn't provide any side effects, if you will, like negative side effects. What it does is it helps improve the quality of the water by breaking down the organics. So some of the impacts, like we mentioned, is the solids, the waters, the gases. So it works with all of it. As far as negative side effects, I don't believe there are any completely negative side effects. It's all about managing expectations. So there are a few systems where we use the product and the expectations weren't set properly, where the sludge sometimes, when you're breaking down sludge in a lagoon, there's gases that are created as you're converting it, right? From solids to liquids to gas, which will then collect underneath sludge. And then what that does is it lightens the sludge and produces pressure to move to the top. And so some sludge will move to the top of the lagoon as it's broken down, and then it will by the air and wind and movement of the water settle and collect on a different side of the lagoon. So there are impacts on the sludge, and so you will see a movement of sludge and water, which could be a side effect. Knowing, and there was one situation where we cleaned the lagoon and the sludge came up so much because of the activity and the biological, and there's like these shoots of sludge that it created a small mat of sludge in one area of the lagoon, which then they felt that their system was broken, but 2 weeks later that sludge on the top was gone. And so there are impacts, just setting expectations that there are movements of sludge, and that is something that you'll see from time to time. Another question, is there personnel that do site visits and recommendations? Yes. So we have a team that works with us, all of us across Canada and the US, and like I said, in Honduras and other places. We have distributors and personnel that are more than willing to do site visits to go through and explain expectations, recommendations, product usages, and provide a lot of the stories and or data that we've shared today can also be shared. We're recording this as well, so we can send this out as a link to those who have attended and registered for the webinar, so that you can review some of the details that are shared here. So great. Well, thanks everyone for coming and participating.